HARP is one of the most underreported stories anywhere. Now we have Fox TV and people saying, oh, yeah, come on and speak about chemtrails. Of course, they massage the whole thing and edit it. But HARP, certainly in controlling the weather, Dr. Bernard Eastlund, one of his first patents before, and I think he was with ARCO at that time, or had sold it to ARCO, was weather modification.
I agree. You know, when the chemtrails first started being sprayed in Arizona in '98 every day, and it came to light that aluminum and barium were two of the main metals that were being used, the question was why. And luckily at that time, in the early days of the internet, even before '98, there had been word from Alaska. What was his name, Bridget?
Nick Begich?
Yeah, Nick Begich, I'm sorry. Nick Begich, who was a member of a very strong political family in Alaska. His dad was a senator who had died in a suspicious air crash. But anyway, he came out with Angels Don't Play This HARP. And he brought to light this HARP installation in Alaska. And he also formed a pretty close friendship with Bernard Eastlund, who got the patents, and in the main HARP patent had mentioned barium as being an important part of propagating the waves from HARP. And Bernard Eastlund also was very forthcoming, especially in the later years of his life, about what HARP could do. And I think he might have had second thoughts about the work that he had done, because he was a scientist interested in the possibilities of HARP, but it was definitely being taken over by the military. You have a really effective technology, the military gets first dibs on it. So it became pretty clear that the metals, not only aluminum and barium, but there's about 15 metals that were identified in the chemtrails, are all used to convert our atmosphere into a plasma or a medium that can propagate these electronic waves. And the atmosphere, the way it was, where it was mostly water vapor, is not as conducive to that if you think of the early days of television or radio with a lot of interference. And with the chemtrails and the metals in the air now, and they're pretty much established now, and they have improved them so that these particulates are so small, and they're also responsive to the sunlight. They self-levitate, and they stay in the atmosphere much longer, so they don't need to be sprayed as much. They just need to be, sort of renewed. Throw some extra ones in there to keep them refreshed. But this plasma that is our atmosphere now, you might say it has a good effect in that we can directly contact our satellites with our smartphones now, and this plasma actually helps to further that also. But its main objective is these HARP installations that are, HARP was originally an ionospheric heater that sends microwaves to the ionosphere. It ionizes the ionosphere even further and can manipulate and fuse the molecules in the ionosphere into a lens that can then be directed to heat up various parts of the ocean.
Right.
Or it also sends back extra low frequency waves down to the Earth for deep Earth tomography to spot oil or water or military installations under the Earth.
Or gold.
Or just about anything, because everything has a frequency that can be detected. And now these HARP installations have proliferated around the world, mostly up toward the north. There's 7 or 8, a friend of ours that used to work for NATO has confirmed there's 7 or 8 of them in Scandinavia, Norway and Sweden. There's supposed to be some in Spain and Siberia. This is now a grid that encircles our planet, and so the chemtrails act as the medium to propagate these waves. HARP we do have an article on our site about HARP and colony collapse disorder. In the summer of 2006, colony collapse disorder started, or in the fall of 2006, and then it was brought to the forefront in the spring of '07, and they had actual congressional hearings on it. But the fall of '06, or the late summer, is exactly when HARP ramped up its output. And I don't have the exact, you'd have to look at the article, but, it went up to gigawatts. In the early days when it first started, it was more it was called a research project. That was part of the RP and HARP
Right,
research
exactly.
project. And so it was less energy at that time, but it was always intended. Eventually, it was sold to the U.S. Navy, and I don't know if the Navy has it now or the Air Force, but it was ramped up in 2006 to be much more energy than ever before. It just so happens that the bees, the spectrum of light energy that they used to navigate was interfered with by this HARP transmissions.
Right.
And that's when they started losing their way. We never knew bees to just abandon the hive. That goes against all their instincts.
With regard to the bees, what we do know is that the bees respond to the queen bee. The queen bee makes a thrumming noise through vibration of her wings. Sound is a frequency. But they became so confused that, and I talked to apiarists in Nebraska, here in Arizona, and I've recently asked them, is there any improvement? And they say it's the same. I said, you mean it's as good as it was, 7 years ago? And they say, no, it's as bad as it has recently been. And of course, this is what we're not hearing through the media. We're not hearing about HARP. Applications are practically incomprehensible. When we think about metals in our body, we think about frequency waves. Our bodies are a frequency. When they want to know if you're dead or alive, what they're basically doing is checking the electrical current in your body. EKGs, is the heart moving? Brainwave activity, it's electrical. It's a pretty gigantic, if you will, operation with many hands in it.
And the extra low frequency waves that return from the ionosphere and bathe the Earth are the same range as our brain waves.
Exactly.
Anywhere from 6 to 11, I think it is.
Yeah.
Mike, can you repeat that again? Because I want to make sure the listeners hear this.
When HARP sends the microwaves up to the ionosphere, they eventually bounce down to the Earth and bathe the Earth in extra low frequency waves. And those waves are in the same frequencies as our brain waves, pretty much. And HARP has been shown, it has the greatest reception in North America and Europe, and that's where the colony collapse disorder is happening. But Bernard Eastlund even mentioned that some sort of mind control, or on a mass scale, not necessarily individual, but you might say mood control can be generated over a large area by these extra low frequency waves coming down from the ionosphere, bouncing back from HARP. And it's also the extra low frequency waves that are used to penetrate below the Earth for this tomography.